Action call. I'm Safrianna Lughna, and I am so delighted to be joined here today by Dr. Tanya English. We're going to be getting into the nervous system today and all kinds of good stuff, just seeing where the conversation goes. So, Dr. Tanya, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Dr. Tanya English. I'm known as the soul chiropractor because I actually go after what's the root cause of the problem or the blockage that's happening. And so I'm actually going to that place where we don't know that we can go sometimes, and also that seems to be kind of off limits when we're doing healing for ourselves. So what we like to do is have somebody standing there with us, that would be me, to help go into that deep area so that you don't feel lost and unattached to it. Because it's really easy to get distracted when you're doing that. Everything in your life will want to distract you away from that.
Absolutely. It is great to have a companion on the journey to self discovery and healing and alignment and
Mhm.
all of that to have that
Mhm.
outside view. So, thank you for that. I am Safrianna Lughna, the queer spirit guide, transformational coach, retired trauma therapist. So, I'm very excited for this conversation today because this was my bread and butter, right? Was helping people regulate their nervous system and get beneath the trauma response so that they could
Mhm.
get back into alignment. And we named this episode No Shame and Blame, It's Just Physiology, which I think
That's
is a
right.
great title because there's a lot to explore that we don't understand. The average person does not understand about
Right.
what is subtly happening in the body system. So I know you have lots of good stuff to share today. Where do you want to start?
Well, I think it would be good for us to start. I'm just writing down a note to make sure I don't forget. Um, it is just physiology, and it's how you respond. We want to start with, okay, so something happens. Let's start at that point. Um, how you respond to that is all about survival. It's all about survival. There are many survival mechanisms in your body, mind, spirit that will help keep you alive. Survival is a little bit different than thriving. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
very.
survival is like keeping you alive. Most of the medicine this day and age is based on keeping you alive. It's not on thriving. Healing is thriving. That's what we do healing for, so we can
Yes.
thrive. We do the other stuff so that we can survive. And
Yes.
there's places for both. So I'm not discounting anything. I just don't think that most people realize when they go to a doctor medicine that they're going to get medicine.
Right.
And medicine
Survival, right?
is to keep you surviving. So I just want to share the screen for a minute so I can really explain it to you a little bit. So this is, can you see it?
I am adding it on my side because it is asking for permission. Here we go.
Okay.
There it is.
So what you're seeing here is the two parts of the nervous system. There's a central nervous, that's your brain and your spinal cord. And the peripheral nervous system goes to all these organs and everything else in your body. There's two parts to that. There's the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. Now, the sympathetic, notice it comes out of the spinal cord only, and that's fight or flight response. There's one organ on this right side under sympathetic that is not on the left side, and that's the adrenal gland right here.
Mhm.
You don't have, you have an accelerator, you don't have a brake over here. So this is all survival. I need to survive. So we call this fight, flight, or freeze. That's going to keep you surviving. You're going to stay and fight, you're going to run and flight, you're going to leave, or you're going to freeze and not do anything.
Yeah.
Parasympathetic is rest, digest, and heal. Rest, digest, and heal. So I just want you to see this. It's really wired that way. The rest, digest, and heal is cranial nerves. And then down here, there's a big nerve plexus here, a big bunch of braided nerves in this area. And then there's a big bunch here that go to all these organs. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at this,
Yeah.
when you're thinking about this. And I'm going to explain it a little bit more. When you go into fight or flight, your body has reflexes to things that it perceives. If you're walking down the street and you feel like somebody's following you, and then you go into fight or flight response, and then you kind of look behind you to see what it is, and it's just a plastic bag, you're still having the same fight or flight response.
Yep.
It's no difference. It's what your perception is. If you're
Yep.
walking in the woods and you see a stick on the ground, but your brain says that's a snake, you're going to jump back and then have time to go, oh, that's just a stick. But your instinct, your reflex is to jump away from something that looks like a snake.
Right.
It's all
Yeah.
perception. And also what you've memorized and what's been put in that data bank of memories, because stuff goes in, it doesn't come out again. It just goes in.
Yeah.
You're recording everything around you all the time. You have a reticular activating system that filters out about 90% of what you don't need to be aware of for survival. See, it's all based on survive, not survive. That's what your
Yep.
body knows.
Our primal wisdom that we have.
Absolutely. That's your lower brain.
Which is important, right? It's important that we survive. It's important that we have
Yeah.
these signals, and they can get overactive. They can get to where we can't bring ourselves down.
Right.
And, I'll use myself as an example. When I started doing my own healing work, I remember if I got startled, it wouldn't, and again, perception, it didn't matter what startled me, could literally be an actual danger or not. It would take me sometimes like 2-3 hours for my nervous system to be able to
Oh,
come
it
back
does.
down.
That's why EMT workers, emergency workers have
Yep.
a 10-year shorter life expectancy.
Yeah,
Because the whole
seriously.
time you're in fight or flight, blood pressure goes up, heart rate goes up, pupils dilate, you might lose control of your bladder. You might have all the blood in your body go to the periphery, and that's what makes you faint,
Yes.
right? So
Had some
there's all
problems
these,
with that too.
yeah, and that's because the body is in overdrive of fight or flight response. It's hyper vigilant.
Right.
That's the stuff that's memorized.
Yep.
We memorize things, and then our body goes, "Oh, that's just like when this happened. I'll faint."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's
And
why. That's why they
uncoupling those
tell you.
reactions. Ugh.
That's why they tell you don't eat, don't go swimming right after you eat. All the blood in your body is in your digestive tract trying to digest food. If you get into trouble in the water, you won't have what you need to swim out of it.
Right.
So you wait for half an hour till the food, and then you can go do something. It's really true. It's a physiological thing.
Right.
So when you memorize things because that's what's going in, and it doesn't come out again. Let's say, I'll give you an example. Let's say you're riding your bike, you're a little kid, and you're riding your blue bike, and you go across the street, and a red car stops short, and you fall over, or it hits you and you fall over. Now your body is memorized. Red car means I'm going to get hurt.
Danger.
So every time you see a red car, your body will do some type of fight or flight. And after a while, that pattern is so worn, you don't even know it's happening. It's subconscious. Now it's
Right.
a pattern that's subconscious. Just like right now, you're not thinking about breathing, you're just breathing. You not have to put attention on it because you'll just do it. It's a pattern that's memorized. Walking is like that. It's a pattern that's memorized. Driving to the grocery store, thinking about what? Driving or what you're going to get at the store.
Yeah.
The
store.
pattern's already been ingrained, so you're thinking about what you're going to get at the store. And this is the thing that happens with intense emotion, very intense emotion, or chronically over and over again. So with intense emotion, what happens? It goes into the subconscious, becomes a pattern that lives there until and unless you actually do something about it.
Yes. Yeah.
This is why it's really hard to stop some habits, because you have to go to the subconscious to do it. And guess what? You can't just tell your subconscious what to do. That's not how it works. Hey, subconscious, quit doing that. Now we can give it signals over and over again with intense emotion or chronicity, chronically do it, and it'll change. But how do we communicate with our subconscious? Through our emotions.
Right.
Our emotions are what communicates with our subconscious. So when I'm clearing people of old patterns of physiology, I'm going after subconscious emotional memories that are overriding present time. I'm going to say that again because it's a lot. Subconscious emotional memories overriding present time. We call those CMOs. Because your subconscious emotional memory is overriding what's happening right now, and it's telling you there's danger and you
Yeah.
better do something about it when there's no danger.
Yeah. I refer to that as an overlay, right? It's like this
Mhm.
old situation overlaying the present so that we
Mhm.
can't quite see what's actually
Well,
in
that
front of
you
us.
can tell when somebody's having that when they react completely out of character or out of what's happening now. Like, let's say there's a lot of people and you're trying to make dinner and somebody moves your spoon and you freak out and you have an upset. I've never done that. But what happens is it's just a pattern that you've memorized. Something's moved and it's like not where it's supposed to be. My husband has the most highly developed startle reflex. I can walk into a room. Oh, he goes, I'm like, I live here. I'm in the house with you all the time. Why am I startling you? Because he goes, walk like a man. You're not making any noise. I can't hear you coming. Like, I'll try, but
Oh man.
clumping around the house. But it's it's one of those things that can override everything in your life, especially if it's trauma that has been, um, you know, caused upset in your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
my phone goes off. I just got a new phone, and I'm just still trying to figure it out. But um, but what's happening is, like, let's say you live with an abuser, and every time they walk up on the porch, and you hear that footfall, man, you're in it, fight or flight right away.
yeah.
And you may not even realize it, but you'll feel constriction, you'll feel heaviness, usually a chest. You'll feel this constriction, you'll tense up because you're getting ready for whatever negative thing has happened in the
Right.
past.
Yep.
And it doesn't even matter if it's that person, it could be that cadence,
Yeah,
that
for me, it's
football.
the sound of, a door being opened was a trigger for
Right.
me for a very long time until I was able to work that out. Those little subtle things we might not consciously be aware
Well, let
of
me tell
how.
you something. You don't have to live with that for years before you can work it out. That's what I do with people is we
Yeah,
do it and it's instantaneous.
yeah,
So when we're doing this work, it's instant. You can feel it. It's like, I'm lighter. I was working on a patient one day and she's been having chronic shoulder problems and we've been working on it. And I got this message because my job is to be open to what source has for me. And it was something happened when she was 3. So I was doing muscle testing and I checked and it was like, yep, tell her to think about when she's 3 years old. She thought about when she was 3 years old because in my mind, I had a picture of her being yanked by her arm at 3.
mhm,
Now, she's never going to remember what that was. I mean, how many kids get yanked by their arm? When they're little? We're going, come on.
mhm,
But as soon as we cleared that, she goes, oh my gosh, my shoulder feels so much lighter. Like there's not this heaviness here.
yeah,
So when we hit on it, and it can take some time to get to that point. When we hit on it, it's just amazing how quickly it heals. It's why we call it quantum healing. It's a very tiny little shift, one electron moving from one supposed orbit to another, very small shift, but it changes everything. It changes how the molecule is made up when that happens. It
right.
changes you when you hit that spot where it's like, that's what it was.
Yeah, and this concept of, quantum healing has been very interesting to me for the last 2 years, and I've had tremendous leaps.
Mm-hmm.
When I discovered I was a creatrix, I call myself a quantum creatrix. We can collapse these timelines,
Mm-hmm.
but it takes this
Big time.
acknowledgement and this work and this willingness to get into it. How
That's
did
the thing.
you the willingness is
The
huge.
willingness
Yes.
is big.
How did you discover sort of the quantum realm and bring it into your work? Because I know for me, it was figuring out a lot of my spiritual identity and just kind of coming into my own. But, everyone has their own journey. So, how did you
Boy, do
come to
they.
quantum?
Everybody's different, and we're all so unique. And when I was 11 years old, I had an experience of channeling Jesus energy, and around 11, 12, 13 in there. And I suddenly realized, oh, my parents aren't really in charge.
Hmm.
If they're not in charge and I'm not in charge, who's in charge? So I kind of had a abusive experience that made me kind of go, what's going on here?
Right.
Nobody ever asked me about it. I didn't talk about it. I didn't know how to talk about it. And it wasn't until many years later that I was able to put a name on that. Yes, it was sexual harassment and abuse. And I was 11. So I don't have the words for that.
Right.
Come home from where I was where that happened and had this kind of existential break where I was like, nobody's in charge. Having, anxiety dreams as a 12-year-old, 11-year-old of being in a bus careening down a road and
Hmm.
nobody's driving. And I have to
Wow.
get to the front of the bus. Yeah. I mean, kind of
Very
telling.
symbolic. Yes, very symbolic.
So I'm like, I'm all alone. Who else is there that can help me understand this? Can't really describe it to an adult because, or even a kid, because I don't know how to talk about it.
Right.
But
No
then
words.
having this experience of channeling Jesus energy and going, oh, this is like, there's a lot of love out there for us.
Hmm.
And then going forward, nobody ever spoke to me about what I said when I channeled, never talked to me about it. So I thought, well, I guess it wasn't anything, except that it was.
Right.
And as I grew and got older, I was following a path and I would just do the next thing that showed up. So I ended up from theater production university BFA going to massage school. And there was a massage school around the corner from my apartment. Oh my gosh, look at that. So I went there,
Right there for you.
right there. And then I was like, this school isn't that great, but there's a really good one in New York City I want to go to. So I moved there. My job moved me into a new job there. And I ended up going to massage school. I'm going to fast forward a lot. I did massage school, said I should just be a chiropractor. I liked working in chiropractic offices. I knew what it was about. I had a chiropractor when is my physiology and anatomy teacher in massage school. So I decided to move to Iowa to go to Palmer, the first place where they had an adjustment, a chiropractic adjustment.
Wow.
And went to school there. And as I'm out of school, I'm like, oh, I need to study BEST, bioenergetic synchronization technique. This is a
Mm-hmm.
technique that was developed and given to Dr. M.T. Morter Jr. And amazing, amazing man. And so that's where the concept of CMOs, the subconscious emotional memory override, and using emotions to help clear things up. Because when we're doing that, isn't it funny how the muscles just stop contracting and pulling the bones out of place?
Hmm. Indeed. Funny
The
that.
bones go out of place because something contracted, and things contract because they're under subconscious control, and the emotions are controlling the subconscious.
Right.
So there's your root cause right there. Recently, I've been having some health issues with thyroid. And so they said, oh, there's nodules on your thyroid. And I said, well, what do you do about that? This medicine. They said, oh, we just cut those off and you take drugs the rest of your life.
Yeah, no, no, thank
And I was
you.
like, well, do you know why they're there? And they said, oh, no, we don't know that. And I said, well, I'm not really a fan of cutting stuff out if you don't know why. I mean, why wouldn't it just come back then? Oh, because
Right.
I'm taking the drugs for the rest of my life. So I'm doing other things to help this situation, lots of other things.
Yeah.
And it's actually convicting me about my self-care
Yeah.
to be doing this. So I always look at a health crisis as an opportunity to learn more.
Yep.
It's not some terrible thing that I'm being punished by. It's an opportunity. So the big opportunity came about 29 years ago, almost 30 years ago, when our first child was stillborn. I
Mm.
was getting amazing care. I was doing really well. We had a perfect pregnancy. and then labor didn't set up right. I think he was being choked by the cord, and he died before he was born.
Wow.
And, you know, it was just like, what?
I mean, I've lost a child too, and I'm sorry to hear that that happened to you as well.
Oh,
That's
it's
life-changing,
the
right?
club
That's
we don't
like
want to be in.
it's the
That's for
club we
sure.
don't wanna be in, and it absolutely calls us into so much questioning.
So as a healer, here I am with a dead child. So what I said to God, what does that what does this mean? Like I'm always looking for the bigger meaning. That what's how is this affecting me and my life in the world?
Right.
Because many people I know, myself included, kind of feel like a bit of an alien here. Oh, this Earth thing is really amazing.
Hello, it's me.
There's so many contrasts, and I'm listening to Abraham Hicks, and they're speaking my mind, and
Yup.
and I was laying there in the hospital bed, and I thought, well, I better pay attention to this because this is the 2x4 of harsh reality hitting me, and I better really pay attention to what's going on here. Now they had kind of overdrugged me, so my husband was sitting right next to me as I was in the hospital bed. We looked at the ultrasound together, could see his heart wasn't moving. And I looked over at him and I said, "Are we okay?" And he said, "Yeah, we're okay. We're okay." Which was the most wonderful thing to have
Seriously.
somebody there that was like not going to go off into space with
Right.
what was happening to them. He was right there. He's perfect for me. And he said, "No, we're okay." I was in the hospital bed. I would breathe out and not breathe in, and he'd say, "Take a breath, honey."
Mhm.
Oh, okay. And I'd breathe in, and then I'd breathe out for about a minute and a half, 3, 2. It was just going on. So he kept me alive. And as I was laying there, I was thinking, I better pay attention to this because this is going to be important for me later and for the people that I care for. Because now I'm in this club nobody wants to be in, and I understand and can empathize, and I can see how this could really destroy someone's life.
Mhm.
Because after we went through all that, and there were some really interesting serendipitous things that happened, little miracles that happened during that time. And we went to a support group one time. There were people in there that were throwing themselves on their baby's grave with their
Mm.
toddler with them, and I was like, this is not where I need to be.
Yeah.
I think they need my help more than I need theirs. And it was just really like, I don't need that. I have faith, first of all. And second of all, I'm asking source, give me what I need for healing. Put me anywhere. I don't care. And I found myself at the Mississippi Valley Blues Festival, which is right there in our town, Davenport, Iowa, right on the banks of the Mississippi, and had a healing with the Blind Boys of Alabama in the tent stage that July. And I was like, this is amazing. Feeling waves and waves of love
Mhm.
flowing through me, just incredible. And it changed how I was healing. It changed how I felt. I started to understand how much love there is for us, how much love we're holding back from ourselves.
Yes.
And it's easy to do because we're taught to do that.
Yeah.
We're taught.
Culturally conditioned.
Yep. Don't love yourself too much. Somebody I just talked to said, um, I said, she said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I really help people love themselves more." She says, "That sounds like narcissism." I said, "Well, look it up." I said, "Narcissism is me telling you how great I am." That's
Mhm.
not it.
That's such a
No,
common,
that's
in
right.
my client work too, same thing, like, because that's more or less what I teach people to do too, is love
Yeah,
themselves, and I see
right.
that same resistance that, "Oh, but I can't do that because that's selfish or
And
narcissistic
we all
or
do it. I
arrogant."
mean, I still do that too. I'm like, oh, nobody loves me. Everybody hates me. No, it's like, it's such a conditioned response to how things show up in life that
Mhm.
you just automatically do it. And then when you stop and you go, no, wait a minute, that's not right. I'm not having this terrible, horrible, tragic situation, the worst thing that can ever happen. That's what they say. I don't think it is, but That's what they say. The worst thing that can ever happen to you, how am I not being punished? So people think of themselves as like, I could blame, I could shame. People wanted me to.
Right.
Oh, those midwives, they killed your baby. That's what the doctor said to us that
Wow.
day. And I said, well, they've never lost a baby. Have you? I mean, it was just ridiculous. And I'm not going into shame and blame on somebody else. I said, so I hired them. So you're telling me that I don't know what I'm doing and that I'm an idiot, right? I mean, that's what you're saying. Do you need somebody like that around when you're trying to birth a baby that's non-viable?
Yeah.
Right? Dead baby jokes have a whole new meaning for me. Let me tell
I'm
you.
sure. Yeah, they do for me now too. I thought they were great when I was a kid.
And the thing is that you're trying to make something lighter and it's pretty heavy. And that's why I say I don't believe it's the worst thing that can ever happen to you. There's a lot worse things. In fact, we were watching TV one day when we were recovering, and a woman came on and she said, there's nothing worse than a yeast infection. And we went, oh, thank God we don't have that. We just have a baby that died.
But at least we don't have a yeast infection.
We don't have a yeast. We were rolling on the floor laughing because it was
We find
just
the
so
light where we
absurd.
can.
Yeah. So I mean, the reason why I say that is because if you don't go into the temptation of blaming and shaming, if you avoid that, and I suggest that you do at all costs, do not do that. Don't blame yourself. Don't shame yourself or anybody else. Things happen. We had to explain this to my husband's daughters who are waiting for their new baby brother to be born. What do you say? People die.
Yeah.
They die when they're young. They die when they're old. They die when they're sick. They die when they're in an accident. They die all the time. People are going to die. We're all going to die. And it's no big deal. Everybody does it.
Yep.
No biggie. Right? So when you're explaining it to children, that's the way we need to think about it. I always say that at church, the children's message always affected me more than the regular message.
Yes.
Got to keep it simple.
Yes. And what comes up for me with all of this is, I call myself a shadow alchemist, and working with pain and grief is important. But there
Very.
is a difference between pain and suffering. And I wrote about this actually
Mm.
yesterday. There's
Mm.
a difference between pain and suffering, and pain is inevitable, right? Pain comes to us in many different forms. Oh, I've got a headache, or I lost my kid, right?
Yeah.
That's pain. Suffering is when we take it that next step and we start to shame and blame,
Flog
and we
ourselves with it.
spiral into all of the stories of why did this happen to me, and why did it happen now, and what am I being punished for, and suffering does not get us anywhere.
No, it doesn't. And here's another thing. When you ask why, that is a terrible question. Why don't you ask instead? Here's a good question to ask. What can I gain from this?
Yeah.
What am I gaining from this experience? Well, I looked at my husband and we were newlyweds, and I knew
Wow.
the kind of person he was.
Wow. Yeah.
Immediately from that, we're okay. I'm like,
Yeah.
he's steadfast. He's true. He's committed. This
Which,
is,
very opposite of mine. Mine was, I need to leave this relationship.
yep.
And I did. And so, the painful experiences that we have in life, can they inform us of where to go next, or what to look at
Absolutely.
next, or
Everything is happening for us, not to us.
right.
Everything. So you have to decide. So I'm laying there in the hospital bed and I'm like, do I really believe everything happens to the highest good? Because this is shitty.
Real shitty.
This is totally shitty. And how is this going to happen to the highest good? I can't wait to see what the highest good. Here's a good way to think about it. I can't wait to see what the good is that's going to come out of this, because
Right.
this is shitty. There's my husband being steadfast and true, loyal, nurturing, supporting, amazing. There's his family, because I'm far away from my family on the East Coast. There's his family supporting us, helping us. My sister-in-law helped me push the baby out. I mean, like, what is it that you want to look for? Because
Right.
what you look for, you're going to find. Seek and you'll
Very
find.
much so.
Seek and you'll find. Knock and the door will be opened. So you've got to do an action. You got to knock to have the door open. You can't just stand outside the door waiting. You have to do something. You have to knock on that door. And then ask yourself, what are you seeking out of this? I was seeking healing because I was in chiropractic college. I was going to finish. I was about to finish. And I was like, well, I could check out. Nobody would wonder why.
Right.
I could just live in an institution for a while. Nobody,
Yeah.
I had the best excuse in the world to just
Yeah.
say whatever. And I went down that road for about 10 minutes and went, yeah, that's not, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, and no shame or blame if other people did go down
No,
that for
because
more
it's,
than 10 minutes,
you,
because it's a
you might
response.
need that.
Yeah.
You might need that. Everybody has their own way of dealing with these things, and you might need that time. You might need that kind of support. I mean, it's people that don't have family around that are going to support them through that. They might need that for sure. Right. So no shame or blame about what you need, and taking your time. And here's the other part. Time does not heal all wounds.
Oh,
Time
I
doesn't do
hate that
shit.
saying. I hate
Time
it.
doesn't do anything except pass. So when we're talking about healing wounds, leaving it alone is going to develop a scar. But if you take some nice organic wheat germ oil and you rub that wound, pretty soon the scar falls off and there's brand new skin underneath. So what are you rubbing on that wound? Are you rubbing shame and blame on it? Are you rubbing, I'm going to learn from this experience on that wound? Are you asking for what you really want? Show me the joy in this. Show it to me. I want to see the joy. I'm seeking the joy. Where's the joy? Where's the love? Where's the healing? I want to see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's so much, I talk about the alchemy process when we can take the pain and turn it into gold, right? Wow, I have this beautiful relationship. Or wow, my life is open before me now. Or wow, I didn't know I could get through something like that, but now I did. And I learned so much about myself. We can really take any experience.
Absolutely.
Any experience.
I call it finding the treasure in the tragedy. Yeah. Where are we going to find the treasure in the tragedy? Where are we going to turn from grief to relief?
Yes.
Because you can have relief.
Yes.
I'll give you an example. This is, okay, don't tell anybody I said this, but one of my friend's kids, I'll say that, had a dog, and the dog, they were going to graduate high school, and they didn't know what they were going to do about the dog because they wanted to go to college, and it was their dog. And the dog was tragically run over the day before graduation.
No decision to be made now, unfortunately.
That's some relief about, I don't have to worry about the dog. I'm just saying, you can change it to whatever you want. I wasn't relieved that my baby died. I was not relieved about that. I was holding a buckwheat hull pillow and carrying that around a bit so I could feel that weight in my arms.
Yeah.
And dealing with, oh, now my milk comes in. What am I going to do about that? My neighbor came over with a sage plant. Turns out if you eat raw sage leaves, it dries up your milk.
Huh. Who knew?
She didn't know that. And I started eating them and I was like, oh, this is great. So, I mean, now I use that with one of my bonus daughters who had twins this year. She says, it's not working. And I said, do you want it to go away? She said, yeah. I said, don't take any drugs, eat some raw sage leaves. It'll go. So 30 years later, I'm giving her advice.
The wisdom, the glimmers of that wisdom that.
Well, I'm a crone, so I'm supposed to be wise, right? I am kind of.
I mean, hey, we all have our wisdom to share. It all
absolutely. And I want to also just talk about what is coming from the other side. Mm-hmm. So we don't just go there when we die. Whatever you believe doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's good to have faith in something. It's good to have a belief that gives you, some static place that you can cling to. I always talk about the merry-go-round. Remember those old merry-go-rounds they used to have that just kill kids? Terrible. If you stand on the outside,
I loved merry-go-rounds when I was a kid too.
Those little ones, you'd run and run and run and push, and jump on.
Mhm.
And if you stay on the outside, you get dizzy. But if you go toward the middle, not so dizzy.
Right.
So we want to go toward the middle where source energy is, God
Yeah.
energy is. So when we're doing that and we ask for a sign of being heard, and I want y'all to do this, anybody who's listening, just sincerely ask, are you hearing me? I need a sign. Show me something that tells me that you know that I'm asking for this, that I
Mhm.
want to connect. I want this connection. I was working with a client the other day doing energy healing, which I do online with people. Um, and I said that we're going to ask for a sign. So we did prayer at the end, and we asked for a sign. And I said, send me a picture when you get your sign. 5 minutes later, she sends me a picture of the water glass she picked up because it had the name of the place where she wanted to go next summer with her children. She's like, look at this.
Amazing.
So, I mean, we can get those things when we were waiting to, when we were in mourning for a child, that the couple of weeks after it happened, I think it was like 3 days, maybe 2 days later, 2 or 3 days, a blue balloon went floating by our windows. It wasn't going up, it was going across.
That's so funny. Do you know what the name of my novel I just released last week was?
No, what?
Bumblebees and White Balloons, a novel about grief and growth, which is the story of my pregnancy loss fictionalized.
Wow.
Yeah.
And there's another book about grief for kids called The Yellow Balloon.
Yeah. Well, balloons are can be a sign of grief and loss and
Absolutely.
also all of that. That's
Well,
incredible that you had that.
and when we had his memorial, we didn't let balloons go because that's not good for the environment or
It's not.
birds. We blew bubbles instead. Everybody
Yeah.
had bubbles. They went outside and said, think a happy thought and blow bubbles. Because the
Mhm.
happy thought isn't just a happy thought, it's changing your physiology. So let's circle back around. So you're in fight or flight response, you're feeling it, you're in it for hours, but here's how you can get out of it in less than 32 seconds. Well, about 32 seconds. You do 4 count breathing. Really simple.
Mhm.
You take charge of your breathing intentionally, and it will change your physiology. So 4 count breathing is inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold it out for 4. So
Mhm.
in, hold, out, hold, all through your nose, not through your mouth.
Yep.
And people ask me, why through your nose? I said, because you have sinuses that are spirally shaped, and it speeds up the air and it activates parts of the brain when you do that.
Yeah.
So
Breathwork's
always through your
beautiful.
nose. And it works like amazing. And then I saw it in a movie. It was so funny. I was like, oh,
It's
huh.
catching on.
I
Breathwork
guess
is
everybody knows
finally
now.
it's like all of this ancient wisdom that we are
Well,
finally reconnecting with as a
we're waiting
modern
for that
species.
100th monkey, where the monkeys are washing their sweet potatoes in the water, and then monkeys on another island that don't talk to those monkeys, they start doing it too. Everybody's carrying a water bottle. Why are we all carrying water bottle? It's like the collective consciousness. When there's a certain tipping point, see, I'm using all these buzzwords. There's a tipping point when everybody starts doing it.
Right.
There's a tipping point when it's like, oh, that's just what we do.
Collective healing could be the same, and that's what I'm here to really advocate
Yes.
for is the collective healing.
Yes.
So the more we do this work within ourselves, the more we're making it possible for people
Absolutely.
around us, which is tremendous. Thank you for all that you do,
Thank
for the
you.
people
You're
that you
welcome.
serve, and just doing this healing that I think up levels the collective, right? Again, the more we do it on an individual level, the more this ripple
Absolutely.
effect takes place. So, are there any other words of wisdom that you want to share today?
I would say, the willingness to do the healing yourself actually spreads out to everybody around you. So when you're making a decision to go deeper and heal those wounds that you've been trying to ignore, maybe distracting yourself in myriad ways, when you be brave and you take that step toward healing those things, you're not just healing yourself. You're healing your ancestors.
Mhm.
You're healing your progeny. You're healing everybody.
Yeah.
You're not just healing yourself. You're doing it for you, yes, and that's okay. That's not narcissistic. That's you loving yourself. And the golden rule is love others as you love yourself. So you better be loving yourself pretty good.
Yeah. That's the key right there is if we're not loving ourselves, it's pretty impossible to really truly love someone else.
I just posted a video, a little short clip, and it's Columbia with the light, and there's shadows that come at her, and she whacks them. And it says, "The devil's going to come after you, and just remember who you are and whose you are. Who do you belong to? I belong to God. I always will. That's never going to change."
Yeah. We are
And
all one body and source.
I always think of us as little drops of water that go back to the ocean when we die.
Yeah.
And then we won't be separated, and we won't have to use this. I'll just say, "Safrianna," and she'll go, "Oh yeah, hi."
I know. There's a big part of me that looks forward to that, and
Me
also I'm
too.
going to enjoy the gift that this life is,
It's
even
a
when
lot
it
of
is
contrast.
hard.
Yeah.
Lots of contrast. Yes, if you
If
have
you,
not watched Abraham Hicks, go
yeah,
listen.
if
Life
you want
changing.
to, if you want to know, I see this here. What does the word quantum mean to you? Quantum means to me small little shift that changes everything.
Yeah.
Quantum healing. And when I work with people online, I'm international. I've worked with people on just about every continent. And so it's important to remember that healing doesn't stop because we're in this little box right here. I can see it.
Yeah.
Healing is going on right now.
Yeah.
And I'm just privileged to be a part of it.
Well, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And if you want to connect with myself or Dr. Tanya, links are in the comments as well as in the description. Please feel free to reach out because we heal in community. We heal together. It's pretty impossible to heal alone because a lot of the wounding happens not alone. So remember that too.
Yeah, you're not meant to heal by yourself.
No,
You're not
no,
meant
no.
to. Where two or more are gathered, there I am also. So
Yes.
remember that when we're healing, we're inviting spirit in because healing's for everybody.
Yes. Well, thank you for this. And to our viewers, feel free to leave a comment if you watch the replay, #replay, and we will see you again soon. Bye for now, friends.